Hello, everyone. Welcome, and welcome some more. Just getting everything set up here for you all. So good to be here today. It's a nice, chilly um, fall day here in fully fall. We're fully into the fall here in Seattle, as I imagine everybody in the Northern Hemisphere is. Those of you listening in the Southern Hemisphere, South America, Brazil, and the like, or Australia. Well, that is it's spring. It's early spring for you, and as people are joining, and questions are beginning to come in, and it's a good idea to get your. Although I like questions, people wait. I like people to wait till I've kind of gotten into the rhythm of it, and we're talking. We're already into that state of satsang before asking questions, but at the same time, I prefer to have them all in the front than in the back. So I can't win, right? So put the question up whenever you feel like it, because I notice there's already some waiting for me for when I, and I'll jump on those in a moment. But I wanted to talk about something that was on my heart today, because anybody who's got a heart, has to feel a certain angst, a certain pain about where the world is right now, about the state of people, our sense of insecurity, or the turmoil in our relationships, both romantic and familial and friendships, and our relationships between us at work, our economics and our politics, which seem to be headed in the wrong direction. It really does feel like everything is falling apart. And I think to a certain extent it is. And in a very real way, it needs to. When something isn't working, and I mean isn't working for all of us, because I know the current system works for a few people extremely well, but it doesn't work for humanity as a whole. And there's this theme that I've toyed with and I've thought about, and I even did a class on it once, called the Harmonious Human. And what does it mean to be a harmonious human? And in the West, and by the West, I simply define the West as those that are dominated by the Abrahamic religions, right? So actually the Middle East, which is not part of the West, is also within that same mindset, as far as I'm concerned, because it's also, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism all emerged from Abraham. Abraham is the father of that religion, and a particular worldview that was held and has been held for thousands of years. And in that worldview, your humanism is a problem. Right? It was the disobedience, right, which was, to simply, do what you were asked not to do, and then punished for doing what in fact was your very nature. And as a result, and couldn't help, by the way, I've even done studies from it. They've put kids into rooms and then left them alone and said, and a room's full of toys, right, full of really fun things for them to do. And then the one who's doing the test will say, all right, you can touch all of these. You can just play. We'll be back in just a little bit, but you can't touch that one. Sometimes they did, and then pretended they didn't. But there wasn't any of them that they just, even if they weren't doing it, they were playing, and they just kept looking over. It's just like, what is it about that one? It is so much our nature. And to make that the foundation of between the three of those, it is the largest belief system in the world. To make that the foundation, right? That your humanness is flawed. It's an idea that's carried over into all the motivational stuff, into psychology, into self-help, personal development, all of these things, that there's something essentially wrong with our humanness. And The divine and the human are one. They're not two. And this is the realization that we have to come to. There's no schism between what we might call God and humankind. There's no disagreement. There's no punishment for the nature of the human. For the nature of the human is the divine made manifest. You cannot separate the two any more than you could separate a song from music or music from its song. There's no more separation between the divine and the human than there is between the borders of countries. Go look. Go to any border of a country and you won't find a border, right? It's completely man-made, right? Even you'll find these little places along the road where there's, cars, and then all around there's like nothing, right? You won't find a line, you won't find a division, you won't find any duct tape, you won't find anything, right? Because it's completely conceptual. It's made up. It's this tribal instinct, these boundaries, as if somehow they're going to keep us safe and prosperous. There is no separation between the human and the divine. That is actually the meaning of the cross, right? As far as I know, the crucifixion is actually only mentioned in 2 of the Gospels. And one of it isn't specifically mentioned to be a cross, although the cross was used as a torture device by the Romans around that time. And Jesus spoke of it long before his own experience, if any of that even actually happened. It's a very ancient symbol, and it refers to this perfect intersection between the human and divine, the past and the future. It is the focal point of all opposites. It is the place where all opposites disappear into singularity, for they all emerge from the same place. And it's extremely beautiful because at the center of that is the archetype of the king or queen, the sovereign, the central authority that holds it all together. It's also the symbol for God, right? And so this, in the symbology of the crucifixion, you have the king of the Jews, put the little thing up there, which they didn't like, in the center of this cross, and the crucifixion symbolized this. You might say it was the subsuming of the human into the divine. It was the merging of the two. And it's supposed to be the redemption. This is the reconciliation, as it's known in many of the churches. This idea of somehow our human nature has become fallen or sinful and therefore needs to be repaired is so pernicious and so poisonous that it has just laid waste to so many of us. It has turned our humanness into sinfulness. We are actually ashamed of our own nature. And of course, powerful forces use that, as a way of control, right? If you're sinful by nature, but I can hold out a redemption, right? Right. Well, then I'm the most powerful thing in the world. I mean, I make the difference, and I could tell you what to do it. But so it's something we have to come to terms with. And anyone who thinks, the only people who are free for that are those who are in the East, those who had more of a Taoist or a Buddhist upbringing, or many of the different religions over there. I mean, imagine growing up in a culture that had never heard of the fall, never heard of original sin, no concept of what it was. Imagine growing up in a culture that, rather than the central image of the belief system, my chair is squeaking like crazy, I'll try to get it to be quiet, rather than the image of this central belief system being this tortured guy, with his tortured look on his face and blood and the crown of thorns hanging on a cross, just this perpetual suffering idea. And instead, it's this other character that's just the smile on his face, half shut eyes, absolutely serene. Imagine being raised in a culture where that was the central image. You'd have a very different relationship to things. And in fact, there's very little history of war or conquering or any of that in Buddhist history. There's almost none, right? and while there have been skirmishes, there have been things that tried to defend themselves and the like. Those that were Buddhist nations didn't have that because they have a completely different model of the universe. They have a completely different way of being. So coming to terms with this. Now, mind you, if you were raised in this tradition, don't think just because you don't believe it anymore that it hasn't infected you, because it's in everything. All of our systems, our judicial system, our legal system is based on it. You know, you did it, punishment, right? It's not redemption. I mean, it's not even Christian, right? I mean, because Christianity has just gotten completely absorbed into this, you know, into kind of the barbarism of the Bronze Age. So it's the kind of thing that requires us to really take a deep look at ourselves and be willing to be present with feelings that are coming up and not be surprised when we feel absolutely guilty for no reason. We feel guilty or shame for even wanting something, for even desiring something. Right? We were all infected with it. Right? So just assume it's there. Just assume that this pernicious belief of original sin, and that there's something wrong with human nature, that there's this schism between God and its creation, that the creator and the creation are not one, that the creator is the ultimate other, completely beyond anything you could ever hope for, is still there in various forms. It's more subtle now, you know, if you don't consciously believe that anymore, if you're not consciously subscribing to it. But it's still there because its influence is everywhere. So I'm just inviting you to consider the possibility of totally accepting your humanness with all of its apparent flaws and weaknesses and problems. To not think of it as something that needs to be fixed or something that needs to be punished, but something that needs to be redeemed. Something that needs to be brought back from the edge, talked down from the building. Finding the reconciling point between everything about us that's human, which is, you know, everything we experience every single day, and the genuine origin of those things. The genuine origin of all of those characteristics being not a fall from grace, but the very manifestation of grace. So that boundary line between the divine and the human just dissolves back into the conceptual nothingness that it's always been. So, on that note, I will once again welcome you to Satsang. Let me shuffle things a bit here, so I can move the screen. And I see there are questions already waiting. So hello once again, everyone, and it means a lot to me that you're here. Thank you for being here. Rosario, good to see you. Good to see you. My man in Madrid. There's Rebecca. Hi, Rebecca. Do antidepressant medications affect a person's spirituality? Well, they do affect the mind, for sure. I'm not a doctor, so everything I say, you know, take responsibility for your own well-being, because I do not have the authority to make a statement like I'm about to make, and that is, all medications treat symptoms, not causes. And while, you know, depressant medications may be necessary at times for helping people to be functional. They will not ever solve the underlying problem. And the underlying problem that has to do with depression is that your desires, your dreams, your ambitions, your aspirations, your capacity for self-expression, and your capacity to desire and be capable of receiving what you desire, allowing in what you desire, has been so squashed by childhood trauma and early upbringing, maybe even past lives, that the system can't even get enough energy to be motivated. And so it sinks into this place that's just really on the borderline of despair. And it can become so heavy. I've never experienced chronic depression like some people have, but I have experienced those times where it's just, you just have no motivation for anything. It seems like it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't work, right? And in those times, to motivate yourself is extremely difficult. And it really doesn't even matter how many motivational speakers you talk to or you listen to. You may be able to generate some energy for a while, but there's something much deeper going on, and it needs to be looked at. Now, the medications themselves do have a profound physiological effect. They have an effect on our thinking. They have effect on our bodies. They have an effect on our energies. But here's the great news and the extremely significant news. Nothing can affect what you actually are, right? Truth is not subject to any conditions, right? The truth is true. If you're out cold, if you're totally drugged up on something, if you fall down drunk, if you're completely depressed, if you're totally elated, it has no effect on truth whatsoever. The truth is true, period, end of story. And that means that your access to your spirituality is never, ever affected by any of the conditions. Sorry, I had to cough a second. If you will take that into your heart, you'll recognize that nothing going on in your life, no matter what it is, can get in the way of you knowing who you are. And that is really, really, really good news. And you can prove that to yourself by just noticing, okay, I was depressed. Maybe I'm chronically depressed, right? Something is aware of that depression, right? And something is aware that it is depression, which means it's also aware of what isn't depression, right? You take the medication, you feel the effect that it has, you feel the shift in the emotions and your sensations and thought patterns. That's also being seen by something. And it's being clearly seen that it is not the way it was before. Now, that which is seeing it, that witnessed the depressive state, it witnessed the artificially induced not depressive state, it witnessed the past states, maybe before an onset of depression, and even the rising and falling it. Has that ever been depressed? Is that capacity to perceive ever been depressed? Has it ever been sick? Has it ever been shut down? Has it ever not been aware? Hasn't everything passed in front of it been recognized by it and discrimination applied to it? Isn't that so? And this is the thing to bring your attention to, because it doesn't matter what the state of mind is. It doesn't matter what the physiological or emotional state is. You can always be aware of being aware, right? And notice that it is absolutely constant. Even if you're out cold, there's an awareness of it. There's no thought about it, right? So you couldn't think, oh, I'm aware of being aware. But you can understand that even if that were the case, you would be there. That awareness would be there. It couldn't not be. There would be nothing to be. You would not exist if that awareness was not there. So the bottom line is, no, it does not. Nothing affects that. And the more our attention goes there and recognizes the absolute constancy of that, it will affect the rest. It will have a therapeutic effect on the depression itself. And there have been people, plenty of people, who have gotten off the medication because they got to the cause. And what was the cause? The cause was your nervous system was shut down because it's anticipating whatever you do, you're going to get hurt in some way. And so it just shuts it down. It's that simple. If every time I did something when I was a kid, I got hurt in some way, which for me actually did happen, there was always some negative consequence, no matter what I did, unless it was exactly what was wanted. And even then I couldn't do it perfectly. There was always something else. I would have times when I would just be completely at a loss. I can't do anything. I had a resilient personality, so I could spring back. I learned how to hide and rebel and cajole, and I was the artful dodger, which kept me alive. But that sense of things being shut down, in some way, we just kind of withdraw into ourselves. People become very shy, they're quiet, they don't want to say anything, they settle for everything. And that means that your natural childlike juice of life is not safe to come out and play. That's the actual cause of it. And it starts by simply this incredible compassion for yourself, recognizing that feeling of depression is the whole energy system saying it's not safe to even be alive. You can't do anything. No matter what you do, it doesn't matter. Not going to make any difference. All of those things. It's the protective mechanism. And it's just overactive undoubtedly because of extreme trauma. I mean, I guarantee it. I guarantee that's what it was. And I don't use that in a trivial way. Oh yeah, it was a trauma. I mean, it's not like that. We don't really understand the depth and meaning of trauma. What it means is that I was cut off from myself. My natural energy, my natural capacity for self-expression became dangerous. It was dangerous to be myself. And so I had to shut it down and become somebody else. And after a while, it just wears on you so much that you just basically sleepwalk through life. Right? And then, take some medication that'll temporarily stimulate the system. So there may be a little activity there. And if you need to, fine, right? But just recognize it's not the cause. And you can get to it. You can come back to this place that's aware of the entire thing. And because of that awareness, it can exercise an authority, a compassionate, gentle, benevolent authority, but an authority nonetheless on the whole mechanism that is keeping you shut down. From here, you can show the system that it is now safe for you to come out and play. And that's where the depression will begin to lift. And you'll find once again your connection to that childlike enthusiasm for life. This is, in a nutshell, this is what I call inner reconciliation. You're reconciling these forces within you. You're reconciling with the safety mechanism, showing it that it can come off duty and give you more freedom. So hopefully that's a help to you, Rebecca. So thank you for that. Oh, there's Bob in Serbia, Ava in Poland, Robbie in Romania. Wow, this is so great. It is so great. Hello, Karen. Hi, GP. I'm asking myself, jumped right ahead. I'm asking myself, are there such things as soulmates? And is it possible that we know someone from another lifetime? If yes, we have a special bond to someone in another lifetime. Is it Did you continue this somewhere? Karen, I don't see it. I don't see. No. Okay. Yeah. Is it? Okay. The answer is, when there are people in the world with which we are so incredibly compatible, where everything flows just so completely effortlessly, you just have to say, yeah, that's a soulmate. Right? And everybody has their own meaning for that, right? Soulmate, twin flame, and some. Oh no, soulmate, soulmate, twin flame are two different things, and everybody's got their definitions, right? I always go, okay, the definition's great, so we're talking the same language, but what's the actual experience, right? We all crave at the depth of us to be in relationship in such a way that we are free to be ourselves. That we feel so free and so loved as we are, that we can just express ourselves fully, and it meets with just increase of love and acceptance from somebody else. Right? That symbolizes our very deepest need to be completely loving and accepting of ourselves. Now, with that as our deepest ambition, I'm not saying we got to love yourself first. That's nonsense, right? It works. It works as a system. But if that is the goal, right, to truly come to the place of total unconditional love for yourself, it is inevitable that will show up in your life in some way. Somebody reflecting that back to you, because the human and the divine are one. Right? So if I'm beginning to offer that to myself, it's going to be offered for me. And of course, from that point of view, I become capable of holding that space for somebody else. And when that happens, you don't have to even be perfect. Right? There's just a space so that if some button gets pushed, there's a space in which that can be looked at, and it can be embraced, and that button be diffused. Now, admittedly, this is not easy, even if there was somebody that was your soulmate, right? Absolutely perfect, made for each other, cut from the same cloth, the same goal, just in two different forms, which is in fact all of us. And this capacity was not there, it still wouldn't work, because just the very act of being a human and growing up as a human means there's going to be a conditioning that takes place. And in that conditioning means I'm going to be afraid for parts of me to be revealed. Now, the only way I can transcend those is to be in a situation where the revelation of those things meets with love and not condemnation. The condemnation is what we got in the first place, which created the conditioning, which created the trigger, which created the backing off, which actually limited the intimacy we could have, because you can't have intimacy if it's not you, right? So if you're showing something other than you, right, which means you're not really present, you're holding back, you're hiding, there's no intimacy. The relationship is between the two presentations that are happening, right? The two, compatible software is what I call it, right? So, in order for you to have an experience like that, there must be this deep and ongoing commitment to genuine spiritual freedom, which is self-acceptance and unconditional love. And that, it isn't stupid, right? It doesn't mean it's unwise. Oh, I'm just going to unconditionally love him, or I'm going to unconditionally love her and just give. I tried that at first, thinking, okay, I'm just going to, and I just kept giving, and what happened? I just got sucked dry, because they were not capable of returning on that level. I couldn't meet them. They couldn't meet me on that level. So the only way I could make it work is that I just kept giving until I was dead, until there was nothing left. I was totally exhausted. So there's a wisdom in it as well, right? And that wisdom has to grow, that you are loving yourself first, in the sense that you're starting to give yourself permission to be who you are, right? And actively engaged in the process of discovering that, right? Seeing through what are the conditioned patterns that aren't really you, and as those begin to fall away through the seeing of them as not conditioning, and not myself, parts of you begin to emerge that weren't there before, right? Which is going to change the dynamics around you. It's going to change the kind of people that interact with you. But it also brings a wisdom with it, that you can begin to discern where other people are in that journey, and are they capable of going the distance with you. And this is the important thing to come to see, because it doesn't matter how compatible two soulmates are. If at the level of their current human experience, they are not capable of going into those depths to really experience the fullness of that and everything that's involved, well, it's still not going to work, even if you are soulmates. So there's no magic formula to it, right? It can start with a baseline compatibility that makes it easy to do that. But the mature relationship will turn that into everything is easy now, right? As if there's not going to be any triggers that are going to come up. Now, what could be beautiful, and the possibility exists, that there's so much acceptance on either side and so much love that the triggers that come up are actually your own walls. They're not coming from the other. And I could testify that happens. And you begin to see, oh, wow, this is all me. This is all me hiding still. Parts of me, I don't want them to be seen. They're not going to be loved. Right? The little boy's just going, oh, no, hide me, hide me. And this is the level of discernment that has to begin to emerge, right? Because there's a point at which you find that it's all you now, right? The projecting on the other stops. It's all me. Everything that's coming up from me right now is me, because I've created an environment in which that can happen. And if you're with somebody who's capable of holding that space, all this stuff comes up, right? It's the best. Yes. That would be a mature spiritual relationship. Would you call that soulmates? I don't know. It's the only way a relationship can actually be successful, and it is the deepest purpose a relationship serves. Because if a relationship serves its purpose, it sets the people in the relationship free. And of course, that's love, right? Love is freedom. And it could only be more and more bonding, because at some point, all relationships come to an end, because the body comes to an end, right? And something else may happen. And your other question about knowing people from another lifetime, yes, I assume, right? Again, it's not the kind of thing you can say hard and fast. I don't want it to be a belief. What's your experience of it? I find that to be a very good explanation of experiences I've had that I haven't found another explanation that fits, right? I've worked with people as a coach, and just kind of sensing into what they're going through, that the block they're having or the struggle they're having right in this moment didn't come from this lifetime. Now, that's the experience. I don't do past life regressions. I'm not assuming any of that. I don't say it's all about past lives or any of that. The fact of the matter is, I was skeptical. I didn't know. I mean, what evidence is there? So the evidence I have is my direct experience of working with people, where I see what they're struggling with has nothing to do with the life that they had. The energy simply doesn't match. Yes, there were traumatic events and stuff, but this energy doesn't match. This was here first. It's actually a dynamic that added to the interpretation of the experiences they had that created this. And this is all just intuitive sensing. It's not, you can't lay it down, right? I mean, there are those rare conditions where somebody, a little kid or something will remember where they lived and stuff. I had an experience. I met my mother from the very same mother many of you know about that made my early childhood less than optimal. I met her as a 2-year-old, and it was her. Absolutely no doubt in my mind, it was her. She has very loving, happy parents now. She can speak English now. She couldn't then. She only spoke Spanish. But it's a wonderful story. I won't go into it now, how I just discovered it was the case, but it was just, it was really quite beautiful. And it also helped heal some more of the wound around all of that. And I was just delighted that she was actually now in a loving family. So I guess that's what I have to say about that. I hope that helps, Karen. Hello, Patricia, celebrating Thanksgiving. Oh, yes, that's right. Happy Thanksgiving to all my Canuck friends. so very good. You're all so very grateful. Milo, hello. Easy and short question. Why am I here? What's my purpose? Is there a purpose? Short. Why am I here? Oh yeah, short question. What's my purpose? Is there a purpose? I once heard the Dalai Lama speak. Somebody asked that. He said, what's my purpose in life? And the Dalai Lama says, I don't know. You're here. Do something. Or as Nisargadatta put it, destiny is what happens, right? Pondering why we're here, right? I mean, it's universal. It's what human beings do, of course, because deep in our hearts, we need meaning. We can't live a meaningless life. Nobody can, right? An unexamined life is not worth living, Aristotle said. Right? And so we want to know that question. If you're waiting to find your purpose before you do anything, you'll never find it. Because the purpose is the ultimate purpose, the generic purpose for every one of us is to express who you are. The form that you are, Milo, has a unique set of attributes. It is unique in all the world. It has never existed before. It will never exist again. And you alone are that. You are the vehicle through which this one unique aspect of the infinitude of being can manifest itself. So there's nothing you are supposed to do. The purpose isn't an external thing being imposed on you. God said, okay, I had a purpose. I created you to do that purpose. You must find it and do it, right? And of course, it's a puzzle because it doesn't tell you, here's your purpose, go do it. It says, you have one. I'm not going to tell you what it is. You have one. Now go find it, right? Albert Einstein once famously said, God doesn't play dice with the universe. And then Stephen Hawking says, not only does he play dice with the universe, he throws them where you can't see them. Your purpose is to be yourself today, right now. What is my purpose for being? Well, right this moment, it's to be sitting here answering your question. That's my whole purpose in life. After this, what will it be? Lunch. Actually, my evening meal. That will be my purpose. Then there'll be some other things that I have to do. I have to make a video for my program that I'm running, my inner reconciliation training. So I've got some work I have to do. That will be my purpose at that time. Later on, it'll be like read a book or practice juggling or my tongue drum or something. Right? It's all my purpose. Right? What is the overarching purpose over all of it? The expression of the uniqueness of you, that in seeing the uniqueness of you fully expressed, we see the nature of the infinite. In other words, we see God in you, as you. The divine and the human, boom, are one and the same. The divine in and of itself, God in and of herself, is unknowable. It is the infinite potential for absolutely everything. It is just the field of intelligence prior to any thought, right? The moment that field of intelligence ponders itself, a thought comes into existence. That thought is the perfect manifestation of that infinite intelligence, and that thought is you, what you know of as your life, right? Now, you're not actually the thought, right? That's our experience. You're actually the field of infinite intelligence. This is where everything disappears into. This is the oneness. You are that, and you are that at the same time. And then from the perspective of Milo, Milo sees the infinite whole as all of us. We're not separate. You are looking at reality. You are reality, looking at itself, right, and seeing itself from an infinite number of perspectives simultaneously. But only one of those can be a perspective at any given time. You can't have two perspectives at the same time. You cannot look at the cup like this and like this at the same time. If you could, you wouldn't see it. You'd see something else. And if you looked at it at every possible angle, the entire thing would disappear in a blur. It wouldn't exist. The only way something can come into existence is that the focus of attention pinpoints itself at a particular spot. And in that particular spot, the entire universe appears. And the name of that spot is Milo. So that's your purpose. Love this moment because that's your purpose. You can't not fulfill it, right? We can't thwart God. God said, here's the purpose of the universe. And then you go, well, I'm not going to do that. Thanks, but no thanks, right? It doesn't happen, right? The whole purpose of this particular form, this particular body-mind, which you are not the body-mind, it is the mode of expression, is to give expression to what? To the nature of being. And the whole meaning, purpose of life is the expression, the revelation of the nature of being. And because it is infinite in its scope, it is inexhaustible, it never runs out, there's never anything that isn't new, and it isn't constantly novel and fresh, and it's constantly transforming itself from the center of itself. It's not a chaotic, 1 minute you're a horse, next minute you're a car. It is this beautiful, constant unfolding that is never the same in any moment, but at the same time has this beautiful sense of continuity. It is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, right? Constant, perpetual creation, perpetual sustainment, and perpetual dissolution. Those are the Hindu gods about it. So you couldn't not do your purpose if you tried. Try to not do your purpose, and that's your purpose. You cannot, there's no way out of this. I hope that helps, Milo. Hope that helps everybody. That one of the dangers of a lot of the modern thinking about these kinds of things is that somehow I've got to find my purpose in order to be satisfied. I've got to find my purpose in order to actually live that meaningful life. Once I find my purpose, oh boy, watch out. It's really going to be happening then. Nope. It is always happening. You've always been doing it. You couldn't not do it. So now harmonize with that. The Tao is flowing. Harmonize with that so that your mind no longer doubts it. Your mind is no longer rejecting it, right? Everything is happening just the way it should. Your mind says it isn't. There are no borders between countries. Your mind says there is, right? It doesn't exist. Right? So you are doing your purpose. You are your purpose. It is fulfilling itself every single moment. So now you can just remove all thoughts that it isn't from the mind and therefore have a larger direct experience of that. And you'll see the flow everywhere in your life. So thank you, Milo. Hello, Liza. Whoops, scary Scandinavia. Hi, Merc. What's scary in Scandinavia? I mean, you guys are just all these, beautiful, loving blondes walking around, right? At least that's a perception of us Americans. Yeah, it's all just fun. They're all just pretty and yeah. Anyway, Ursula and Madeira Island. There's Mary. Hi, Mary. Hey, Georgia. Good evening. The Satsang love as ever from Georgia and London. Good to see you, Georgia. I can't wait to visit London. There's Martin. Namaste. What is elemental memory and what is evolutionary memory? Well, go ahead. There's so many different terms. I'm not really sure what you mean by elemental memory. There's kind of this idea that, maybe it's related to like Jung and the archetypes, right? There's aspects of existence. We have it, and I may be getting this wrong because I'm not 100% familiar with that phrase, so I may not be expressing it in the way that whoever the definitive one who says what this meant is, but there's elemental, that is, very fundamental aspects to the human form. Right? We still have the reptilian stem in the brain. There's still this aspect of the human form that is just completely unthinkingly reactive to whatever happens in the environment. And the idea is be safe, eat, reproduce. That's what it does. That's all it does. And if you look at the history of how life evolved over hundreds of millions of years, it worked. Yep. And little reptiles kept making little reptiles, and all sorts of things happen. Starting with, it supposedly started with fish, decided to crawl up and see if they could breathe, which is possible. Catfish have both lungs and gills, right? That's why they can, they can stick their heads out of the water and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's, these have, so there's this, in every successive form, there's remnants of the original, whatever that was, right? Kind of the original primordial soup, I guess. So it's always partaking of the prior. It's always a line extension, you might say. It's always a variation on a theme. And so I would see that as being an elemental memory. It can be confusing because things like this aren't really memories, because we normally associate memories as I remember that, right? Same thing with evolutionary memory. Right? That these are actually just patterns of behavior and and programmatic responses that are just passed down from one generation to the next because they worked, right? Certain characteristics happen, so they work. This is the nature of evolution. Some of those things worked at one time and don't work anymore. I mean, that's one of the experiences we're in. The vast majority of the programmatic responses that are in the nervous system don't work. They don't work anymore because the environment in which they emerged over 400 million years or something like that, right, doesn't exist anymore. We don't live in a world of scarcity anymore, right? We're creating that scarcity, right? Because we still believe that we are. It's like this, this hasn't gotten the text message from here that we're not there anymore, right? It is actually possible for every single one of us to be not only survive, but live quite happily, right? Fully, education, healthcare, all of that is absolutely possible without anybody going without, right? Everybody being able to express themselves fully, contribute in some way without any restrictions whatsoever. in a way that's actually completely harmonious with the whole planet that could make sustainable forever. Right? But we've gotten to a point where we consciously have to participate in that process by acknowledging both of the forces that are in us that got us to be able to do this in the first place, plus the new forces that are there that have created this different environment. And the whole crisis is, are we going to do that? Or are we going to continue to live as if we're in the jungle, wipe out ourselves and the planet, and may take everything with us? This is the nature of what we're facing. And it is that. And out of that old pattern comes greed, comes ignorance, comes hoarding, which, will do nothing more than guarantee our demise. And this is the circumstance we find ourselves in at this point. So you could think of evolutionary memory as ancestral memory, ancestral things passed down, and the exact mechanism, as far as I'm concerned, while I talk about it and I try to describe it, the exact mechanism isn't really as important. Some may say it's pure DNA, others say it's energetic, some say it's cosmic, some say it's karmic, all sorts of explanations. Put the explanations aside and we can all agree that something's happening, right? I have impulses in me that I didn't create, right? And oh, look, my parents happen to have that too. So they're just from our direct experience and our own intelligence and reason, we can look and see, yes, there's something going on here. Now, I can take an academic approach and I can study it and I can try to show what it is and I can put names. I can publish papers on it, but that doesn't really, for me, because my only interest is, unsuffering, be happy. That's my whole motivation. I'm not trying to get my a PhD in anything. I couldn't anyway. I can't pass school. And so it's just okay. Those influences are there. And I'm aware of them. Now, this is a first. This level of conscious existence, of this conscious awareness of the conditioning, is absolutely novel. This has emerged. This has exploded, right? That we're in this situation, and we know we're in this situation. I mean, think about it for a second. This is stunning, right? We could have very much grind along, just doing exactly what we've always done, wiped ourselves out. I mean, other critters have, they've exhausted the food supply and it ended up killing them. Right? It happens. Sometimes the food supply, the predators and the prey go like this, right, and keep each other in balance. And sometimes it gets wiped out, and that's the end. Canceled on that particular evolutionary experiment. We could have been one of those, but something extraordinary happened, and that is we're aware of it. It's like, wow, we're doing this simply because we are ignorant. We don't know any better. We didn't know any better, but now we do. But all of a sudden, there's this energy now that doesn't want to stop doing it. But okay, I get the whole picture now. That level of consciousness is off the charts, and it's only appeared briefly, at least in recorded history. Those saints and sages every now and then that popped up and said, hey, things aren't the way we think they are. This is what's unique. And it is that consciousness that opens up the door for us to literally undo elemental and evolutionary memory, or what you want to call that. All of those patterns can be undone, and a completely different thing created. But right now, we're in the midst of this tussle between consciousness and the unawake, which is simply obeying the same primitive mandate and withdrawing, hoarding, grabbing, aggressive, violent, which still appears to be dominant, but it's losing its grip. I wouldn't have you all here if it wasn't. So I'm going to leave it at that. Hopefully I shed some light on that, even if I didn't directly nail the actual absolute definition of elemental memory or evolutionary memory. So thanks, Martin. Annette, hey, GP. Is it true unconditional love between individuals possible? Is true? And yes, what is necessary for that to happen? Oh, beautiful. I think I explained that with Karen and her question about soulmates. I could say a little bit more about it because the answer is yes, it is. Matter of fact, it's more than possible. It's a necessity. Without that, you don't really have a genuine relationship, right? You got a relationship where you're holding back, you're hiding, you're not revealing yourself, you're not present, right? Which is what most relationships are. That unconditional love, I mean, it doesn't happen like this, right? It has to be earned because it involves trust, right? Now, I can have unconditional love for a child. I can have unconditional love for friends, right? And what does that mean? It means I accept them as they are. I don't expect them to be something else. Right? It means even those things I don't like, right, and or even I think are destructive, right? It doesn't affect my love of them. Right? It doesn't. I don't see it as a personal flaw. I don't see it as a personal problem. I recognize it has impact in their life. But those are all still at arm's length. They haven't come into my space where I am now investing my heart, my sense of safety, my home into them. This is a different thing altogether. And the merging of those homes, for the most part, have been driven by our cultural rules and laws that have been more about making sure it's stable rather than happy, right? And so this is the man's job and you do it. This is the woman's job and you do it. And I still hear it. I mean, there are still people who say that women should be subservient to men. And it's just absurd. It's utter nonsense. It's barbaric Bronze Age stuff. And it isn't even universal, right? There were plenty of matriarchal societies. The Native Americans still are. Right? It's a balance between these polarities. So the unconditional love is this ever maturing capacity to accept the other as they are. But in an intimate relationship, there's a commitment to each other's feelings so that I am not just, you have to accept me the way I am. You have to, I have to be willing to examine what I am. I have to be willing to inquire into the reactive pattern, right? So that I become free of it, and therefore the more free I am of the reactive pattern, the more present I am, the more unconditional my love is, and the more intimacy can happen. So at that point, there's a commitment to each other's freedom, holding space for that, but that can only happen if there's a commitment on each side that I will do the work, right? You hold the space, I will not project it on you, and when I do, you have permission to hold up the mirror, right? And we have enough trust in each other. We're willing to do that, even when the stuff is hard, right? Even when I don't want to feel it. That's a level of spiritual maturity that makes unconditional love in a relationship possible. Without that, it actually isn't. Because if it's unconditional love on one side and an unwillingness for self-examination on the other, you have a very you'll have a narcissist and its feed, right? Because everything will be projected on you. It's your fault. Yeah, it's all you're doing. And if I'll accept him as he is, right? At that point, now you've got an even more dysfunctional situation. Yeah, it's like it's your fault. Everybody said so. Right? I've got to be willing to say first and foremost, my happiness and the happiness of this relationship is my responsibility. So I don't say it's 50-50. I say it's 100 and 100. I take a relationship, I take responsibility, you take responsibility. And therefore I am always willing, maybe even reluctantly, to look at my own shit. Right? And I rely on you to tell me that when I am. Right? and not be worried about my reaction, right? There's the level of trust that has to go into that, and to actively solicit, look, if you see this in me, I need you to tell me, and I'm giving you permission. It's irrevocable permission now, forever. So even if I try to take it back, I can't. Contract. That's a level of commitment that will support and sustain unconditional love. So it isn't just the incredible intensity of romantic love, right? To sustain that, this is what it requires, right? And I've learned this the hard way. I have to tell you, I have learned this the hard way, because I didn't do that, right? And I suffered the consequences of it. But at long last, at long last, I'm coming to that place. So thank you, Annette. Hopefully that answers the question. I think I may make an excerpt and put yours and Karen's together, because it's so important these days. It is just absolutely so important these days, because like everything else, our relationships are, the most important relationship in your life, right? Which is the relationship with your significant other, is under immense pressure and stress and trouble. It is just, it's completely crumbling. We feel insecure. We don't know what to do. We feel completely lost. And it's good. It's good that this is happening, right? It isn't pleasant. It isn't easy, but it is good, because it was held together through external forces. The culture was making things work. And so it wasn't the level of sweetness and genuine intimacy that we're all craving. That's why these relationships have been consistently unsatisfying down through history. Ever since we left, we stopped being hunter-gatherers, and the bonding became formalized, and not dictated by nature itself. It has been it's been unsatisfying. But now we're again part of that, of our conscious reconciliation between the animal nature that got us here and the divine nature that we have recognized, bringing those two together into what I love to call the harmonious human, or you can call it the Tao. So, red rose for you. Hi, Sonia. How do we move from our past? I feel a little resentful in my experiences, as if they were punishment. Resentment that keeps me from joy, like my life isn't getting better, like everything collapsed. This is a very common one. And it's actually a good thing. It's a first step. There's energy there. It's like, God damn it, why did this happen? I went through it. As I began to realize the impact that my childhood had on me, right? I mean, my first memory was hanging upside down because I gotten tied into bed. So I was tied into bed for 4 years. I mean, not that I was let out, but it just every night they tie me into bed. Right? Just a profound impact that had on me. Of course, at the time, this is the 1950s, right? I had no access to any of this stuff. I didn't know what was going on. I had no idea that I had been the kind of the depth to which this conditioning happened, and it was just consistent abuse all the way up to the time where I finally left home. So as I began to realize the things that what had happened and just the extraordinary abuse that it was, there was this bitterness. It's like, my God, I've had to go through all of this stuff. I've struggled with self-sabotage, failures, all sorts of things, completely unnecessarily. Right? And they go, okay, yep, that sucked. It shouldn't have been that way, right? But it was. And I started looking more closely. What is it that causes a mother to do things like that to her child. And that wasn't the only thing that she did. There's nothing natural about that. There's, something obviously happened to her, right? And my dad is in just complete incapacity to be able to deal with it. And checks out, something happened to him. And I began to just see this thing going back and back, and there was no culprit. There was nobody to blame. And then I began to feel this incredible joy, this incredible honor that for the first time in this history, somebody woke up and said, whoa, what's happening here? I could have been just done the same thing. I could have done the same thing to my kids, could have justified it. But just something in the atmosphere, the time, me just kind of woke up and said, holy shit, what was that? And I literally vowed that I would not pass it on to my kids. And I became very meticulously conscious of it as best I could, because obviously stuff slipped through. It wasn't easy. There was all sorts of forces, that wanted me to take stuff out on them, and I was aware of them. I just didn't do it. I held it back. It was painful, but I realized that the level of consciousness that recognizes it as it really is, in the wholeness of it, right? My parents did that to me because they didn't know any better. They didn't have consciousness. It wasn't available to them. And it had happened to them. And it had happened to them. And it had happened to their parents and their parents and their parents, as far back as it went. And the sheer honor of being tapped on the shoulder by God and woken up. And that waking up, of course, you see what's here, right? It isn't, rainbows and unicorns. It's like, oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, I'm awake. Ooh, I'd rather go back to sleep, but not an option anymore. And so it's okay. Don't suppress the resentment, right? Okay, I'm going to be spiritual now. Oh, I forgive them. Oh, they didn't know what they were doing, right? It's just so candy-assed. It's not going to work, right? Feel that resentment. Yeah, this sucked. This shouldn't have happened. This has caused me an enormous amount of suffering and pain. It's caused me opportunities lost. It's caused relationships that weren't intimate, that weren't satisfying. It's affected every aspect of my life. That's the truth. Damn straight I'm resentful about that. Okay, now what? I don't want to spend the rest of my life resentful, but this really did happen. So I can't let you downplay what had happened. Yeah, it was horrible, right? And you have every reason to be resentful. So be with that energy of resent, of anger, of retribution. I want to put that guy in a microwave, right? That's okay. Do it. Be with it. Do not suppress any of that, because if you don't, it will run its course. It will find its own equilibrium. If you suppress it, it'll fester, it'll get worse, it'll come out sideways. So just do it. I've worked with people with EFT and inner reconciliation, which is, I hate that son of a bitch. I want to kill him. I want to throw him in a blender, right? After a while, it becomes humorous, right? The edge gets taken off, because first we have to have permission to feel. With permission to feel, the energy system very naturally begins to just throw this energy out, because it does not want to be stuck in that position. It doesn't want to feel anymore like it's being punished. It doesn't want to be resentful, right? There's nothing about you that actually wants that to be. So the more you just let yourself feel it, even voice it, and no matter how ugly or awful it appears, very naturally, the energy will just go, oh, okay, I had permission to really rant for a while. Well, this isn't how I'm going to stay. No, I want happiness. I want freedom, right? Okay, it wasn't there. It wasn't just handed to me. Now what do we do? And you'll find all sorts of fresh energy and enthusiasm and love emerging, right? Even love for them, right? Now I could say with a whole heart, It's absolutely true. If that hadn't happened to me, then I would not be sitting here with you now. What can I say, right? Would I wish it on anyone? God, no. Do I wish I would have had a different life? Absolutely not. It was worth it to come to finally see who you really are. I'll pay any price for that. And I did. I still am. It ain't over till it's over. So, Sonia, love you. Hello, David and Elaine. Greetings to both of you. Hello, Mary. So need to hear this, GP, your introduction to Satsang. Oh, right. Yes, I have many, many people, and I'm so grateful for those who have gotten themselves out of the really fundamentalist Christian movement, which has become more virulent and aggressive and nasty as time goes on, more manipulative. It's showing its true colors, and it's so good to see people just getting free of it. A natural awakening is taking place, right? Even within it. And this is what happens when religious ideas become increasingly extreme. Eventually, people just go, wait a minute. This is just too far over the top. Right? This is just, no. The humanness kicks in and goes, no, this can't be. This can't be. The God that created this universe is offended by me because I used the very thing, the very gift that he gave me. I used it, and now he's not just gonna snuff me out of existence, right? Because I'm just expendable. No, he's gonna basically make me suffer forever. The twisted mind that came up with that, and the sheer amount of coercion and fear that needs to be instilled in anybody to believe it is just stunning. It's just stunning, and it's just does my heart so much good to see people coming out of that. There's several fellows. And girls, men and women, and most of them are young, right? That have YouTube channels now, that were once, born again fundamentalist Christians who have not drank the Kool-Aid. They put the Kool-Aid. One's even called Holy Kool-Aid. Question everything, just don't drink the Kool-Aid. And it's really gratifying to see the voice of that, just pointing out just the flaws in reason, the flaws in morality, the flaws in heart, and it's just really good to see that it's happening. That incredibly virulent and ugly belief system is cracking at the seams, and you can tell it's cracking because it's getting more and more aggressive. It's trying to get more and more control. It's trying to be more influential in politics, and it's hugely influential in politics. And you could tell that has nothing to do with the teachings of Christ. Nothing. So glad for you, Mary. Crispin, hi to you. There's Anja in Germany. There's Jonas, also in Sweden. There's Steph in Germany. Namaskaram all. Just had a funny sales pitch for IR. Learning how to think with and through your body will never give you a headache. Happy Navratri. Learning to think with your body will never give you a headache. I love it. Lisa, if you're watching, write that down. Thank you, Steph. Oh my goodness. There's Jonas. Hello from God. Well, hello to God. Oh wow, you just said God when I wrote it out on the keyboard. Is this merely coincidence? Steph is getting praise for her sales pitch. Hope you're doing awesome. Hello, Sean. I am. I hope you are as well. Sean, in regards to sin, what makes us feel we even have control of what we're doing on a fundamental level? What makes us feel like we chose to sin? What's the feeling of choice? Where's the feeling of choice come from? Well, let me address this on a couple of different levels. The model I like to use is first there is no choice, then there's choice, then there's no choice again, right? But there are different levels of spiritual maturity. As a child, you have no choice about anything, right? The shape of the body, the character, its location, your parents, all of this stuff. And in the beginning, there's no discrimination. Your beliefs, your patterns, all of it's just happening automatically. You are nothing but your environment, period. I mean, you start out as nothing but, an extra organ in your mom's body that eventually just kind of gets pushed out, right? For good reason, like it's time to go to college, right? To get kicked out. The idea of sin is man-made. There's no such thing as sin prior to agriculture and the creation of those kinds of religions. Religions that were a step or two divorced from nature. Didn't have sin in hunter-gatherer communities. Didn't have sin in the Native American. They saw clearly the relationship of nature. They took nature at her word. This is the way things are, and we conform to it, and we just do, right? And sometimes there'll be interrelationship stuff, but it was always settled amicably. Nobody was wrong, right? We didn't have sin as a cultural thing. There was only, what worked, meant you thrived better. What didn't work meant you didn't. So it was really very simple. It was not moral at all. It was completely the Tao. It was completely in harmony. Sin came into being later, right? Where there were cultural rules, and those rules had to be enforced. Now, these are rules of the group, right? But not a group that was in harmony with nature. This was a group that was beginning to dominate nature. That's what agriculture is. I'm not going to walk around for my food. I'm going to grow it myself, and I'm going to store it. This is also where the idea of property and possessions came. The idea of wealth, having more than somebody else, was actually an ideal rather than an illness, as it was regarded by the Aboriginals. And so, in that state, right, you can choose, right? I don't want to do that, right? But of course, that was not governed by nature. It was governed by law, punishment, banishment, thrown away, right? You were thrown out, you were punished, you were hurt, your hand was cut off, right? You were killed, you and your family were killed, right? I mean, there was just all sorts of ways, but this was all culturally invented, right? Because it has no real, it still has some roots in nature, but at this point it became completely social and a step removed from it. All of this gets passed down, and this is what you inherit. All of this is instilled with you. All of that going all the way back, and all the different forms it's taken since then, right? And whatever the modern definition of sin is, which is you've broken these rules. God said an absolute authority, not nature, but an absolute authority who is actually separate from nature and imposing it on nature, said you're not going to do that, or there's going to be hell to pay. And at first it wasn't hell, it was just these kinds of consequences are going to pay, social rules and that sort of stuff. And then in order to really make the culture stick, it became an eternal punishment, right? Which is the best way to scare the snot out of people so they do what you say, right? So what happens then? Right? For the most part, up to a certain point, really up until now, we except for rare instances, we simply were our culture. You were your conditioning. You did what you're supposed to do as a kid. You got married at the right time. You had the kids. You did all this stuff, right? You weren't making any choices, right? The choices you're made on, do I want this or this? Do I want to wear red or wear green, right? So the things that were what we would then call a choice were really just personal preferences. They're kind of built into you too. And you could even say they're not really choices. All of this is you, right? Now, some point comes consciousness. And when I mean consciousness, I mean that which sees itself as other than the conditioning, that recognizes conditioning as conditioning, and therefore is looking now at all of life from a completely different point of view. This is what I call the awakening. That's the beginning of the awakening. Right? I am now seeing conditioning as conditioning, and not just some. And prior to that, I was the conditioning. There was no questioning. This marvelous thing has taken place, and it's relatively recent. It's relatively recent on this kind of a scale. It's always happened throughout history. There's always been shamans. There's always been sages that have popped up here and there. But this is happening on an unprecedented scale, this kind of awakening. And I hope I'm actually answering your question, because you see that sin is man-made, right? So now we're in a very precarious position. And that is, I see that it's man-made. I see the conditioning. Now, what are the standards by which I am going to now govern my own life, govern my actions? What can I go to a source, a solid reference point for morality? I mean, I can't return to the hunter-gatherers. I'm not that. I wouldn't last a week, right? But I also see the incredibly oppressive impositions of the culture, which are just gotten worse, are completely unacceptable. They're completely arbitrary. In our modern world, they're not even for my benefit. They're the benefit of a handful of people who don't actually even follow the same rules that I have to, right? In that moment, there is that sense of having a choice. I can choose now. And that happens on a personal level, it happens on a cultural level. On a personal level, it's like, oh, I'm aware of the fact that this is conditioning. I can actually choose, if not immediately choose to do a different behavior, I can at least choose to not engage in the behavior that I normally would when I wasn't conscious. That feels like a choice, doesn't it? Right? And that's the experience of it. That's the experience of the feeling of having a choice, conscious awareness. Now, the reason I say the next step you find, oh, there isn't any choice whatsoever, is because what's actually informing that choice, right? Am I just choosing anything? There's something inside of me that actually has an intrinsic idea of what the best actually is. And I'm not making that up. I'm not choosing that. I'm perceiving it. I'm witnessing a truth. I'm not just choosing something else. I'm seeing that between these two things, this is clearly the better. And so I am moving in that direction. Is that a choice? Sometimes it can feel more like a choice because there'll be an impulse to follow the old habit and an insight that this is a better way. And we may not have the strength to do it yet, and we'll feel like I have to choose out of discipline. But you realize that the essence of that is the perception, the discrimination of true value. It's the discrimination of truth. So you're actually, from the point of view of just kind of our everyday human experience, it feels to be a choice. But even when you do something simple, like I want this flavor instead of that flavor, what's the choice? You're simply checking in, and your body is saying, I feel like that. And you're acknowledging it. So from this highest perspective, you can see there really isn't any choice whatsoever. There's simply the discernment of truth. The absence of the discernment of the truth, which is conditioning, or the presence of that discernment of truth, which is wisdom. And wisdom doesn't choose to be wisdom. It's just rooted in what is self-evidently true, and that governs the system, and that's how it works. And then you begin to see that what we refer to as sin is just a cultural imposition, but you're not stepping into a place of moral relativity. You're stepping out of the moral imperative imposed from the outside, but you're not stepping into moral relativity, which this spiritual approach, the Christians accuse this of being morally relative. So it doesn't matter. You kill babies and it doesn't matter. No, I am appealing to a higher value, but it is not being imposed by this Bronze Age, brutal, jealous God. It's the self-evident truth. This is more loving. Duh. This is the most loving thing under the circumstance. That must be the right way. And if they would drop Yahweh as God and actually accept love as God, they would do it too. So, and I think I kind of folded over into Mary's second comment about it, suffered immensely because of the teaching. It's in my bones and cells. Thank God for teachers like you. It is, but your bones and cells knows it doesn't belong there. So that kind of virulent teaching, you just notice it when it pops up, notice the fear and just kind of invite your body to, it's okay, guys. There is no threat, right? There is no eternal punishment. There's no judgment at the end of this. Judgment time is right now. The discernment between what is true and what isn't, what is loving and what isn't. And I'm more than willing to stand trial at that judgment. Crispin, being not vaccinated, I'm struggling with fearful thoughts when I hear about the possibility of new viruses and Bill Gates proclaiming further vaccines. Where's the world heading? Well, this is a sticky one. And I consistently take a point of view that I am not going to tell anybody what to do about that. You have to, I know people that are, people that aren't, right? And everybody has their reasons. And the truth of the matter is, unless you are trained as a scientist in some discipline, if not the discipline of virology and immunology and that sort of thing, there's just no way in the world you could really understand the fullness and the complexity of it that would allow you to kind of do your own research on Google and figure it out. So don't deceive yourself into thinking that you can. The real problem that we have right now is that us regular folks don't have any access to trustworthy information. We simply don't, right? Bill Gates, I don't know him as a human, as a person, but I completely disregard him as an authority because first off, he isn't an authority in any of those things. And he has a vested financial interest in the vaccines because he owns patents on it. And he's also, so he's bought himself an authority that he doesn't actually deserve. And so I don't pay any attention to what he has to say. He's the archetype of the false king. He's Scar in Lion King. He's Prince John in Robin Hood, right? He doesn't have an actual claim to the throne to be declaring what he's declaring. So it puts those of us who are not so willing to immediately jump on a bandwagon in a very precarious position because we don't know. I've been researching it, I mean, look, I'm no fan of the drug companies. They put profit first, period. Which really is the problem. The problem isn't, are vaccines good for you or not good for you? Of course, they've served a great purpose. They have, right? People want to tout herd herd immunity. Yes, it's wonderful, but it also means a substantial amount of the herd will die off. Those that don't have a natural immunity will die off. Those that do will live. This is how it works. This is the way nature does it, right? The most effective, for sure, right? But this is what I was talking about earlier. We're in this precarious position where we can do that if we want. And but I don't think we want to. Deeper, we realize that we can intervene in a way. But if our intervention has been completely corrupted by a motivation that has no business being there, well, now we've got a very different circumstance. See, the problem is that we're living in a system that is inhuman. We're living in a system that is insustainable. And it's a system that has to lie to us in order to sustain itself because it isn't sustainable, right? It isn't based in humanity. And this is the struggle we all have to face. And again, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do, right? As I said, I'm not a fan of these companies. Every time somebody said, I got the smoking gun, this is proof they did X, Y, or Z. This is the proof of what the ingredients are. I've researched it and found it to be not true or to be insignificant. And so I kind of left in this dilemma, right, of how do I come to know what's true? Well, I don't have the skill or the knowledge to dive into any of this. I'm not going to get it. I'm not going to go, cruise on Google until I find something that actually confirms my bias. See, there it is. There's the one article that proves it's all true, right? I approach it all with incredibly healthy skepticism. Say, is this work? Does it not work? Sit back and watch, right? I mean, it's being rolled out, right? What are the consequences? And statistically, what are the consequences? There's always the one that points out, the vaccine, took the vaccine, next day they died, right? That's not enough. That's not enough of evidence. Or I didn't take it and nothing happened. Also not enough evidence, right? No matter which way you put it, right? What has to happen is there has to be a shift away from the profit ideal of capitalism, and more importantly, away from consumerism. The capitalists can't survive without us being consumers. So it really does come back to the place where we have the power, right? If I'm constantly having a demand for more stuff, right, they're amoral. They don't care. It's like the mafia. Oh, you want more heroin? Sure. Here. It's killing you? Well, that's your choice. Here, I'm going to keep doing it because it's profitable, right? So the world is heading off a cliff if the current system persists. That's just a fact, right? We're rapidly approaching the point where climate change will be irreversible, and we have no idea what it's going to do. It may settle into something else that is actually hospitable to life, or it may completely inhospitable to life. We don't know. Nobody knows. That's the whole point. It's a system of such complexity that once you set it off in a trajectory, you don't know where it's going to go. It will seek another stable state. That's its nature. It will do that, right? But it may end up being a stable state like Mars or Venus or Jupiter, right? Which it's with its 10,000 kilometer an hour hurricanes that last for 1,000 years. Could be the stable state that it goes to. I'm also not one to say Bill Gates is the devil, and the Illuminati and all that, because there's no evidence for that at all. He and people like him, and you heard me criticize, the three gentlemen that, while they could have saved literally tens of millions of people's lives, instead decided to put themselves on a childish joyride into space. Right? I'm highly critical of these people, but they're not evil any more than my parents were. they are living in a view of the world which is completely self-destructive and insane. And because there's so much support that says it's fine, they own all the media outlets that say this is the way it's supposed to be. They've convinced most Americans that this is the life they should expect, that there's nothing telling them that we're really on the wrong path. And the evidence that is saying that is being ignored. Cognitive bias whatsoever. Oh, it's not that big a deal. It's not that important. Or maybe even worse. Yeah, it'll help with getting rid of some of the riffraff in the population. I mean, it can even get really nefarious like that. So that's my kind of big discussion about it. I say you're going to have to think for yourself, right? I can say with confidence that it is consumerism that is the problem. Right? And there's no system. I don't care what you're talking about: socialism, capitalism, communism, anarchy, libertarianism. I don't care what it is. You'll see they all have one thing in common. None of them put the earth first. It's all some idea, some man-made idea. None of them say, hey, the touchstone, the only reference point that matters is the earth. That's where our energy has to be put in. And consumerism, just under the assumption that we can just continually take resources out of the earth and not have any effect. And it's insane. It's like I can continue to pump blood out of me and I won't die. It's like, sorry, just doesn't work. Again, we're being invited to consciously participate, which means humbling ourselves to work with nature and not against it. We work against it, we lose, period. This is where it's got to go from me to we. And that we has to be everybody. My tribe can no longer just be those that are close to me. It has to be everybody. That's my feeling about it. So I will leave it at that. Hope that wasn't too political for folks. I really try to be balanced about this stuff. I mean, if you talk to me personally, I might get a little bit more strong about it, but in my public persona, I don't want to use my platform to influence people into a belief. I want you to it's always about giving you freedom. Yeah, it's all about freedom. And with that freedom comes the capacity for you to distinguish and discern. So, thank you, Crispin. All right, I am, let's see, I'm going to just scan through here really quick to see what's here. Let's see. Oop, sorry, Tatjana. I didn't mean to put that up there. Okay, so loving the satsang. It's hitting many triggers. Thank you, GP. I'm just going to make sure that I just can't push myself over. I have to cut off right around 2 hours. So I'm looking through the questions to see which ones I want to take up right at this moment. I think there's too many to do justice to the whole time. These words clearly saw these 3 words together in the IR. And then the symbol of the cross is fascinating. I remember a bishop speaking at school when I was about 7 saying the cross was the I crossed out. It was a light bulb moment. My whole being said yes. Interesting. Interesting. That would be really good for. That would really be good for. Not 7. That's a bit young. To be talking about that. That's where the I should be being strengthened to the point where it can self-validate, and that's the power that lets us let go of the I. You know, an I that's clinging to itself, that has to defend itself all the time, that never gets to voice itself, is not going to be very receptive to say you have to let go of the I. It's going to be interpreted as you're just demeaning me yet again, right? I've got to give up my ego. Fuck you. So, but the symbol of the cross is an extremely powerful symbol, right? And it's just the Romans used that as a punishment for criminals, and of course, there's no evidence that Christ was crucified or resurrected or any of that. So my regard for Christ and what he had to say is that the kind of things he said are the kinds of things that a sage would say. Right? Simple as that. The kind of things that he said, to me, match the things I've heard out of Buddha, out of sages of the East, various sages in India and the like, and it dovetailed so well. I figured there was somebody who was a sage, and maybe did run afoul of the Jewish law, was critical of the Jewish law, became a bit of a regarded as a troublemaker, and maybe was executed. I can't really say. There was a book done by I can't remember the group of people. It's about 70, 80 scholars. They put out a Bible called What Jesus Said. And it was 4 Gospels and the Gospel of Thomas. And in it, they had shown those phrases. They only dealt with the words that were attributed to him, and then they graded it. Words they were absolutely convinced he said, words that probably he said. Then there was that other group that probably didn't say, and another group absolutely he did not say that. In that top group of what they're convinced he said and what he probably said, 18% of what's actually written there. It was really amazing watching it break down the words, the way things were substituted, stuff that got added on, and they could even pinpoint when it happened and the belief systems and when it did. It was very fascinating. So if you take all of that out and just look at that 18%, right, which is even less of what they're absolutely certain of, you get a better picture of a sage. So I do think he existed, even though there's absolutely no physical evidence for it. There wouldn't be, right? Very unlikely there'd be any evidence for that at the time. But then the legend of him began to grow. And then he became a useful tool for the Roman Empire. And they created a completely different character. Right? So the modern view of Christ and the cross and the resurrection, the virgin birth, all of that is a complete fabrication after the fact, for the express purpose of controlling people. So yes, your whole being at 7 said yes to the crossing out, the sacrifice. That's the true meaning of sacrifice. To whenever you are willing to put the good of the whole ahead of the good, your own good, you have gone to the cross. You have taken up the cross. Right? If the only good you do is when it benefits you, I'm going to do all these wonderful things for you, and I'm only going to charge you $8.99, with a profit margin of 60%. That's not the cross. But the willingness to say, I will compromise my interests for the benefit of the whole, that's the cross. Right? That is the genuine surrender of I to the we, right? The embracing of all humanity. And as Christ put it very beautifully, for then are you the children of the Father. Love your enemy. Be good to those that curse you. Bless those that curse you. Yes. Blessed are the meek. Blessed are the peacemakers. Oh my God. It's all over the place. Let's see. David Elaine. Lovely introduction, GP. So poignant, fundamental. Although it can be said, we are happiness. Surely this also means not denying any aspect of our being and embracing our human existence. And yes, this is the absolute subtlety and paradox of non-duality. You are happiness. You are the infinite intelligence. And there's only one. And yet that infinite intelligence manifests itself as an infinite number of forms. And the forms get have this strange capacity to identify as if they were separate. That is, thought forms form. There isn't actually an entity there that is identifying, but the thought structures of identification and individuality do appear. It's mind-blowing the way it works. But you are the infinite intelligence. You are love. You are happiness. Right? And recognizing that, you realize that the human life, the whole meaning of it, is to give concrete form to the otherwise completely unknowable reality of love, happiness, intelligence, creativity. Right? Music would always exist, but if there was never a song, nothing would be heard. And the divine wants to hear its own song. You could put it like that. Let's see. Hello, Daryl. Alexander Petrunovic. There's Roberto in Madrid. Hello, Roberto. 4. What I state if we don't have desire, regards from Bosnia. If you don't have any desires, you are either a saint and you should be managing satsang, or they've simply been suppressed and you just haven't had permission to let yourself have them. To liberate yourself from desire this is another paradox in spirituality. The liberation from desire starts with the full ownership of them, and then a disidentification with them. They're no longer a personal possession that somehow you've taken responsibility for. Nor are they a personal mission that if I don't get them, I won't be happy. They become a vehicle for the expression of inherent happiness and joy, rather than the mechanism of attaining it. This is the 180-degree shift. And so I will always start with people just saying, bring up anything you desire. Anything. I don't care how small it is. Maybe even a memory of a desire you had as a kid. Right? There's no such thing as a kid that doesn't have lots and lots of desires. No such thing. They don't exist. Right? So it's something you even remembered that you really, really wanted. Right? And then just feel into it. Let yourself feel the actual energy of desire. It's a very natural human thing. Right? It's part of the humanity. And you'll also notice there'll be resistance to it. Right? You may not even be able to hold a picture of it. You'll just kind of be fleeting. It'll be away. You'll get easily distracted. Something will feel like, no, this isn't okay. But persist with it. Right? It's kind of like visualization, but without any intention to make something happen. I'm not doing my list of positive aspects to make myself more grateful so I get what I want. There's no intention behind it at all, except to feel what you're feeling when you feel it. And just notice that it is not natural to not have desires. Right? And I'm not walking on water, so I haven't transcended them. Right? Okay, cool. So let me just be with what's here. And it's very honest. It's very earthy and honest. And in that comes the liberation. Now you begin to realize that there are desires there. Of course there is. Human life couldn't survive without them. But there's a mechanism inside that has shut them down. And that becomes very interesting. What is it that is shut down? Human nature. Whoa, that's a big one. What is it in me that is shutting down a big part of my own nature? That's worth looking at. That's worth getting curious about. So, I'll leave it at that. Let's see. Hendrik. Hello, Hendrik. There's Kiran. Namaste in Alabama. Roberto. I have been able to realize how afraid I've been all my life. And it is the fearless part of you that is able to see that. Isn't that wonderful? Being able to realize that. That is literally showing you the way out of that. Isn't that wonderful? What if we don't have any desire for anything, but we are not in depression? Just don't give a damn and give a thing for anything. Look at it carefully. right? We be willing to examine that. That's all I ask. I don't give a ding for anything. Okay. Right? Just be willing to look at that, right? Feel it when you say something, I don't really want anything. Feel what's going on in your body, right? Oftentimes, especially if you've been on a spiritual path, we can get into this state of mind that we think we're supposed to, where we're supposed to be free of desire, which is actually true, but it's not in the way people think it is, right? And I say, so I really don't care anything. Is it real? Or is this just kind of an attitude that has been put on? Is this an identity that has been taken on? And be brutally honest with yourself, right? And just be with it. It's not a problem. I'm not saying, oh, you should have all these desires. There are times when just don't. There's times when I don't, right? Just, no, I'm fine just the way everything is, right? But I check in. Am I suppressing, or is this really the case? And then sometimes, oh, it's great. And then also, oh, you know what? There is something. There is something. So I'm just going to let myself feel that desire. And desire has a nice, sweet energy all about itself. It's quite motivating. It's how things happen. It's the energy of creation, right? There's no creation without it. So don't dismiss it, right? It's, and throw it to the side. It's a moment by moment checking in and being honest with yourself. And if you can say that, really take it in. Is there anything I really want? Anything? Yes or no? Oh, right. Right now it's no. Okay, there should be then a real peace there, right? And there also may be a creative energy there. Because remember, we're not just talking about things. This is the energy of creation, right? I want to learn a new skill. I want to dance. I want to make music. I want to write something, right? Not because I'm trying to get something, right? That kind of a want, but there's a natural creative energy there that is deeper than what we normally think of as desire. But without the desire to do it, it wouldn't exist. It is part of the creative nature of life, right? And this creative nature is the most amplified in human beings. So check it out. That's what I said. That's all I ask. Take it for checking. Sally Belair. Hello, Sally. Hello to you. You appear to be new. Wonderful to have you here. Tatiana. Hello, everyone from Toronto. Great topic, GP. Thank you. Karen. Is it more likely that we are attracted to that person in this lifetime? Even search for that person? The search is always for ourselves, right? Because what we're trying to do is to see our wholeness reflected back to us, right? The strange thing about a true deep romantic relationship is that you are complete and yet they complete you. Totally paradoxical. I am absolutely complete. I don't need you in the slightest. And you totally complete me and I need you like a drowning man needs air. They're both there simultaneously. Somehow the second part of my question didn't show up. Right. So just go more deeply into you, right? He is in there. I'm assuming it's a he. Could be a she. It doesn't matter. They're in here. They are in here. And it's a reflection of this with you. How much permission do you give yourself to be yourself? How willing are you to allow yourself to be seen? Right? How willing are you to allow that kind of love coming into your life? Right? These are all the questions we can ask ourselves, right? And we don't need anybody else there to ask them. As a matter of fact, it's probably better you ask him first, right? So that when he does show up, you'll recognize it. Because if the proper work hasn't been done here, Mr. Right can come right up and say hi, and you go hi, and pass right by. Because we have to be able to recognize it when it happens, right? So don't look at it as the answer. Look at you as the answer, and look at it as the confirmation. How's that? add to that. Since I already put a lot of energy into the soulmate discussion, I'll just see if I can put a bow on it. There's Jonah's best talk on soulmates I've ever heard. It's the kind of woman I'd love to be with in life. Someone is also called to go the distance. I just don't see how anything else could work. It can't. Okay. So be you. Yeah. So there is something to be said about being content with yourself. Right? It doesn't mean it ends there. Okay. People, if I'm content with myself, I don't need anybody. And I just said, no, it's not true. It's not true. You cannot need and need at the same time. It's a different kind of need. If I'm a piano player, I need a piano. The piano doesn't complete me, right? But without the piano, I can't play very much, right? The vehicle through which the depth of your completeness gets expressed is as important as the completeness itself. This is the relationship between the human and the divine, which I said right from the beginning. This is the harmonious human. The piano player's got his piano. The woman has her man. The man has her woman. The man has his man. The woman has his woman. Any combination thereof. That doesn't matter, right? It is the genuine completeness that has its completeness manifested, not sought. Such a great topic. I have a feeling I'm going to be getting requests for soulmate class. I can't do it like how do you find your soulmate? Okay, here's the 3 steps, right? It's you. It's you. It's all in you. That to the degree that you feel any kind of sense of completeness, it can be reflected outward. And it doesn't mean you have to wait till now I feel complete, now it's going to be there, because it can actually contribute if there's spiritual maturity, right? And you're willing to hold that space for each other. That's a big one. And that's where I'll have to be doing live workshops on that once the couples get together to keep them couples. Anyway, there's Peter in Italy. Good everyone around. Nice to be here. Actually, I started my night shift. I have to catch you later. Thanks, Peter. Hi, Jacqueline. Good to see you. I do think, yes, you've been here before. Tatiana says, if we understand or believe that we are not our experience, then what is the purpose of looking for a purpose? Well, you don't look for it. You are it. It just happens, right? You see people. You're a therapist. You see people. You help them transcend and have deeper, happier lives. That's a purpose, right? And it's your nature, right? It is the fulfilling of your love. It's your nature, right? Right. So, and it is the experience. So there's no need to look for it, right? You are it. When you realize you are it, if I am my purpose, then everything I do is a fulfillment of the purpose. It doesn't matter what it is. Blow my nose, right? It's a purpose. Stop to get gas. It's my purpose. Why? Because I'm the purpose, right? So whatever I do becomes purposeful because I did it. Not because it brought something to me. It's an abstraction. Me doing something gives it meaning, gives it its presence, gives it its purpose. Okay? It's all you. You are the magic. You are the saint. You are the secret sauce. You are the energy that animates everything else. There's Dale in Massachusetts. Faith, hello, my chic. I miss you. I miss you too. I was just thinking about you this morning. I said, I haven't seen Faith for a minute. How can we surrender while we keep feeding a desire? Yeah, she said we're the ground for these seeds, desires, and I realize that my desires are not my personal. How to come to surrender without denying desires. I love you. Pray for me. It's Baba GP. Thank you, Faith. Before I answer that, I'm just going to check through. Excellent answer. Wonderful satsang from Andy. Loving this satsang. I'm here. Susanna's here. Yes, totally. And if it hadn't happened to me, I wouldn't have been sitting today with all of you, and especially you, GP. Yes, that's right. Sorry, I just got kicked out of my own studio. Okay, so I'll take this. Connecting with somebody romantic, sexually, so beautifully. Let me take this one first, Faith, and I'll make yours the last one, because this is related to what we were talking about before. Mindful Zero, love you, G. Play the game, throw away the game. Don't be harmonious human. What part of the instrument is the mind? Wow, all these questions. Short answer is, it's just all part of it. Don't divide it up to mind, emotion, and sensation. See it as one, different aspects of one functioning energy, and you'll see the entire thing is the instrument. Whether it be emotional, whether it be the experience of sensation, or it be thoughts, which is all the mind is, right? It's where the creative impulse gets concrete, right? It's where reason is. It's where discrimination is. It's a doorway that can open to a deep awakening. So it is part of but it has to be harmonized, because the discord's all there. There's no discord in emotion and sensation. The discord is all in the misperceptions of the mind, mistaking thoughts for truth. Okay. Play the game, controlled by the game, don't be identified with the game. Now you can put down the controller and be what you were before you enter the game. Yes, and he says, connecting with someone romantically, sexually is so beautiful. I don't really know what to ask. Just amazing. It's so beautiful. In case, yes, it is. Or is it just a mind-made creation? It feels incredible either way. It is just a mind-made creation. Damn, that was a good one. No, it's not mind-made. It's part of life. Mine's been infiltrating it and kind of gumming up the works. But when mind begins to begin to harmonize with the truth of your being, then it actually participates in it. And yes, it is beautiful. Yes, as it was supposed to be. Tatiana, thank you, GP, for your answer. You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Okay. All right. Greetings. Hey, Francis King. Good to see you. All right. Let me go back to Faith. This is going to be the last one I take. Because it's incredibly important. There's this idea that has emerged that it's kind of binary, and spirituality has contributed to it. You either have a desire or you don't, right? Desires are good, they're bad, right? It's this polarity, right? That gets in the division. And then it's well, those are okay because you can do that. You're okay to have babies, but don't enjoy it, right? right. And these, no, not at all, right? And these others are like, okay, those are okay. And it's completely arbitrary where those lines get drawn. So what I invite to do is to actually be with the experience of desire itself. Just be with it, right? And just feel it. Instead of going to the mind saying, should I have it? Should I not have it? Should I hold on to it? Should I let go of it? What is it? Instead of all the analysis, all of it's a waste of time, and all of it's after the fact, right? Because you'd only have the analysis, you can only have it after the desire's already appeared, right? Which means you didn't create it, right? You didn't create your hair. You don't make it grow. I don't say, grow hair, grow. The tree doesn't go, grow leaves, grow. It just happens, right? This is the way it is. This is the nature of things. And so putting all the mind's ideas aside, all the spiritual ideas, all the law of attraction ideas, and just being present with this incredible phenomena of a desire arising. And the experience, the energizing experience it is. Now, when a desire arises, think of it as an absolutely pure newborn baby, full of promise, full of energy, right? May not even know what it's for, right? Right? When a baby's, well, what's it? It doesn't do anything. It poops, it eats, it sleeps. That's it. What's it for? What's it going to do? What's it going to become? Have no idea. And you love it anyway. You protect it with your life. You're with it all the time, right? I'm going through that right now because my granddaughter's like 2 weeks old, right? She is 3 weeks now. Yeah. Whoa, getting old. Right. And so this is desire, right? And of course, the child is the fruit of a desire, right? So it's desires within desires within desires, and the desires to sleep, desires to eat, right? Desires its mother, the comfort of the mother, and to a certain degree the father, right? All of those are just our natural inclinations. So in you, a desire arises. Now, if we don't put any overhead on it whatsoever, no judgment, right? It just lives in its purity. Now, for what happens for all of us is that a desire arises, and that desire runs into the rules, the morals of the tribe that says, this is a good desire, this isn't a good desire. This is okay, this is not okay. This is sinful, this is virtuous, right? You can have this, but not that, right? And so when in fact is absolutely pure, like a newborn baby, now starts getting kind of bent out of shape, either completely suppressed, or it starts to get distorted, right? Trying to be, in order to just stay alive, it has to become something else. You can see that this is an exact parallel of what happened to all of us when we weren't allowed to be ourselves, and we got kind of bent out of shape, right? So you have a desire, right? Everybody has a desire for a fuller, freer, more expansive, more expressive life. This is the nature of our being. We couldn't get rid of that if we tried, right? And it's so powerful, right, that it's moving our actions. And when we cannot realize that, we have there is a sense of suffering around it. Now, there is an innate discomfort in desire. I have to say that, because its whole purpose is to move you. It is to motivate, right? So that feeling of discomfort is simply, I've got to do, I've got to act, right? But desire is unlike fear or anger, which are defensive energies, this is a creative energy, right? And the less there are of the defensive energies, the more the energy goes into the creative energies, which manifests as desire. It starts as desire because you're not going to do anything until you first desire it. So there's no such thing as any action that doesn't take place without first being a desire, and you didn't create the desire. So the entire thread of action was not your creation. So now your job is to just be with it. Now, when you talk about surrendering it, it's a recognition. You can actually make a ritual of surrendering it to God. Thy will, not mine, be done. Right? Putting it on, you can even make an altar and make a little ritual out of it. But you're not giving it up. Right? You're handing it off. Right? Look, you put this desire here in me. Right? I didn't make it. Right? If it's not right, take it away. So, right? Because I don't want to suffer over it. Right? Otherwise, help me out here. It's a very real prayer, right? It's an acknowledgement and a surrender of it at the same time. But it's not a dismissal of it. It's not a desire, is it? As a matter of fact, the only way you can treat that desire with honor and respect is to feed it, is to be with it, is to rejoice in it. And through that wisdom of seeing more deeply into yourself, recognizing that there are internal and external forces that are resisting this, right? That's wisdom. All right, there's an external force resisting this. There's an internal force and an external force. In the virgin birth, which is only in 2 of the Gospels, and it varies, there was an external force. It was symbolized as Herod the king, right, who represented the rules of the tribe. And Herod, of course, was a false king. He was appointed by Rome. He wasn't really entitled to the throne, right? And you got word that there may be somebody who was entitled to the throne, and we had to do away with him. So there's this external force trying to what? Kill this desire, kill this virgin birth. And it is a virgin birth. You didn't create it. Nobody created it. The desire arose. There it is. And so you are just determining a very sacred relationship between. You're not going to let it go, like a mother wouldn't let go of her child. But at the same time, you're going, help me out here, right? Can you see that you're doing both at the same time? You're surrendering yourself, going, I don't have all the answers. I will do everything I need to do. Right? But ultimately, I am completely relying on you. You brought this into existence. You're the one that has to take care of it. I'll do my part, but you got to do yours. Right? It's a very powerful and a very simple and a very heartfelt prayer. Right? So that's my prayer for you. Right? That you stay in that place, that you never let go of that. Right? You never let it sour. Right? And at the same time, you never give up your hope. You never give up. You just do not check out on that desire the way a mother would not check out on their child. Right? Well, some mothers do, but that's another story. Anyway, okay. There's Melissa. Great to be here. Grateful to have you, Melissa. Wonderful, wonderful. There's some new things down here. There was that. Great sounds, Penny. Thanks, Penny. Thanks, Penny. Penny, thanks. Wonderful. Okay. That's it for today. Thank you all for being here and being with me. I will make a couple of excerpts from this. I think maybe the one about the soulmates, and maybe the thing in the beginning would be useful for people to have isolated. And I'll take all the different parts I did about soulmates and put them together in one. That'll be a good one. In the meantime, thank you all for being here. If I have any folks here that are in Canada, around Vancouver, the British Columbia area, I'm going to be there next Sunday and Monday. I'm doing a recording session to record a meditation in a recording studio up there. So I'm going to be there. So if there's anybody else in the Canada area, we're organizing a little get together that Penny is organizing for me. So just message her or send an email to support@gpwalsh.com. My first road trip since COVID. Gotta jump through a few hoops to make it happen, but we are going to make it happen. So I'll be doing more when I get to Europe, which will not too long from now, a couple months. A couple months. All right, everyone. So good to have you all. So good to be here with you. Love you all. Namaste.